Imagine for a moment. What if you could unlock the door to your ultimate freedom? A freedom that isn't defined by the expectations of others or the constant pressure to be someone you're not. A freedom that is untethered from the fear of rejection or the overwhelming weight of daily responsibilities. What if, in the midst of all this chaos, you could find peace? Not just fleeting moments, but a lasting, deep sense of calm that radiates from within. How would it feel to finally tune out the noise, step away from the distractions of the world, and focus on what truly matters? The path you choose, your personal growth. Now, I know what you're thinking. It sounds too good to be true, right? But what if I told you this kind of peace is not only possible, it's already within your reach? It's hidden in the profound wisdom of Buddhism, teachings that have withstood the test of time and offer a blueprint for living a life of balance, tranquility, and purpose. Imagine, for a moment, having access to timeless Buddhist insights that could shift the way you experience. Today, we're embarking on a journey together. A journey that will take us deep into the heart of Buddhist philosophy, where we'll explore 10 powerful lessons that hold the potential to transform not just how you view the world, but how you live in it. These aren't just ancient teachings, wrapped up in dusty scrolls and distant history. No, these are practical tools, adaptable to our fast-paced modern lives. They are designed to help us rise up. In the hustle and bustle of daily life, it's easy to get lost. We're constantly being pulled in different directions by external pressures, whether it's the expectations of our family, the demands of society, or the never-ending cycle of notifications from social media. These forces tell us what to do, how to feel, and even who we should be. It's no wonder that in the midst of all this noise, we often forget the most important person in the equation, ourselves. We forget that the greatest source of peace doesn't come from external validation or success. It comes from within. The wisdom of Buddhism teaches us that by silencing the external noise and focusing on the one thing we can control, our hearts and minds, we can find the freedom to live life on our terms. This is where true peace resides, and where we begin to unlock the potential for real happiness. But how do we achieve this? How do we stop the outside world from influencing our inner state? The answer lies in understanding and applying 10 powerful Buddhist lessons that, when practiced with dedication and mindfulness, can lead us to a life of greater fulfillment and peace. So, if you're ready to take the first step toward reclaiming your peace and finding deeper purpose, then stay with me as we delve into these timeless Buddhist teachings. Together, we'll explore how to prioritize your inner growth, silence the distractions around you, and focus on your personal journey above all else. Let's begin. 1. Stop relying on others for your happiness. In today's world, we often find ourselves searching for happiness in the approval of others. Whether it's seeking praise from a boss, validation from friends, or love from family, many of us unknowingly tie our sense of well-being to the opinions and actions of those around us. Yet, according to Buddhist wisdom, true peace and happiness can never be found outside of ourselves. The Buddha famously said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." This teaching is not just a profound statement from ancient texts. It is a powerful truth that can transform how we approach life. When we look to others for happiness, we are often left feeling empty or unfulfilled. The moment we depend on external factors for our sense of worth, we relinquish control over our own emotional state. Take, for example, some of the most successful and powerful people in the world. Despite their wealth and status, many of them struggle with feelings of inadequacy and loneliness, often because their happiness is tied to how others perceive them. One example that comes to mind is Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple. Known for his extraordinary vision and success, Jobs was also known for his intense drive for perfection and approval. However, over the years, he learned that true fulfillment didn't come from external success or recognition. It came from aligning his work with his inner values. In his famous 2005 Stanford commencement address, Jobs shared his personal journey of finding meaning and peace, stating, "You've got to find what you love." And that is as true for your work as it is for your lovers. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life. And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. His message reflects the Buddhist idea of finding happiness within oneself, rather than seeking it from the outside world. I've also witnessed this shift in others, particularly those I've met on spiritual retreats. One experience stands out. I met a young woman who was constantly seeking approval from her parents about her career choice. Despite her achievements and passion for her work, she felt deep inadequacy because her chosen path didn't align with her parents' expectations. It wasn't until she started meditating and reflecting on her life that she realized her happiness could no longer depend on external validation. Through mindfulness and self-discovery, she began to embrace her own values and build a life that resonated with her true self. Over time, she found that her happiness was no longer contingent on her parents' approval. She had become her own source of peace. This story perfectly illustrates the lesson we can all learn: the importance of looking inward for happiness. By shifting our focus away from external sources of validation and instead cultivating self-reliance, we open the door to true inner peace. The more we learn to find joy in the present moment, regardless of what others think or say, the less we will need others to validate our worth. And in doing so, we begin to experience a deeper sense of fulfillment, one that comes not from what we achieve or how others perceive us, but from the simple act of being at peace with who we are. In the end, the key to lasting happiness lies within, inside our own hearts and minds. By embracing this truth, we can break free from the endless chase for external approval and begin to live a life that is truly our own. 2. Don't fear being alone. Embrace solitude. In today's society, the idea of being alone often carries a stigma. Many of us are conditioned to think that solitude is a sign of loneliness or weakness. We fill our schedules with constant activities, social engagements, and distractions to avoid being alone with our thoughts. But according to Buddhist wisdom, solitude is not something to fear. In fact, it is in solitude that we can find clarity, strength, and a deeper understanding of ourselves. As the Buddha himself said, meditate, live purely, be quiet, do your work with mastery. This invitation to embrace solitude is not a call for isolation, but rather an opportunity to quiet the mind, focus inward, and cultivate personal growth. The fear of being alone is so ingrained in modern culture that we often seek external validation and distractions to avoid confronting our own thoughts and feelings. Whether it's through social media, work, or constantly being surrounded by others, we tend to escape from the stillness that solitude offers. However, the more we avoid it, the more we deprive ourselves of the wisdom and growth that can only come from being alone. The greatest transformations in my own life have occurred during periods of solitude, when I had no one to rely on but myself. In these moments, I learned to sit with discomfort, to face my fears, and to listen to my inner voice. It was only when I stopped running from silence that I began to understand my true desires and needs. One powerful example of the transformative power of solitude comes from the life of Steve Jobs. The late Apple co-founder, known for his innovation and vision, often retreated into solitude to reflect and recharge. Jobs would take long walks by himself, away from the constant buzz of the tech world, to think deeply and gain clarity on his next moves. These solitary moments of reflection allowed him to tap into his creativity and make decisions that would ultimately change the world. His ability to embrace solitude and disconnect from external pressures is one of the reasons he was able to see the bigger picture and innovate in ways that others couldn't. Similarly, many Buddhist monks have spent years in isolation, seeking enlightenment through solitude and deep meditation. Take, for example, the story of a well-known monk who lived in a remote forest monastery for many years. During his time alone, he underwent intense self-reflection and spiritual growth. It was through embracing solitude that he found a deeper connection with the world around him. In his solitude, he learned that the true essence of life lies in stillness and presence, not in external distractions or the opinions of others. The lesson here is clear. Solitude is not something to fear, It is a space for self-discovery. It provides the opportunity to reconnect with your inner strength and wisdom. In a world that constantly demands our attention and energy, spending time alone allows us to recharge, reflect, and gain clarity. Rather than filling your time with noise, embrace the quiet moments. Meditate, reflect, and listen to the thoughts that arise when you're by yourself. Solitude is not a void. It is a fertile ground for personal growth, creativity, and understanding. So, don't be afraid of being alone. See it as an opportunity to reconnect with your true self and find the peace and clarity you need to move forward in life. Whether it's through meditation, reflection, or simply taking time to be still, solitude is a powerful tool for self-discovery and transformation. 3. Stop seeking approval from others. Buddhist wisdom offers a profound reminder. You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. This teaching encourages us to stop seeking external validation and to recognize that our self-worth is not dependent on the approval of others. In today's society, the pressure to gain approval from peers, family, or even strangers has become almost overwhelming. Whether it's through social media likes, public recognition, or the desire to meet others' expectations, we often find ourselves chasing a form of validation that leaves us feeling empty and unfulfilled. The pursuit of external approval can be a relentless cycle that clouds our true sense of self. And it's only when we stop looking outward for validation that we can truly find inner peace and self-acceptance. In my own life, I went through a phase where I was constantly seeking approval from others. I would measure my worth based on how others saw me, whether it was through accolades, likes, or compliments. At first, it felt good. Those external affirmations gave me a fleeting sense of validation. But over time, I realized that the more I sought approval, the more I lost touch with who I really was. I began to mold myself into the version of me that I thought others wanted to see, rather than embracing the person I truly was. I discovered that the pursuit of external validation only led to disappointment because it was never enough. It wasn't until I started learning to love and accept myself that I began to experience lasting peace. The realization that my self-worth was not defined by others' opinions was liberating, and it gave me the courage to live authentically. A powerful example of this principle can be found in the life of renowned author J.K. Rowling. Before achieving global success with the Harry Potter series, Rowling faced numerous rejections from publishers. For years, she struggled with self-doubt and sought approval from others. It wasn't until she stopped seeking external validation and stayed true to her vision that her work truly flourished. In fact, her personal journey was one of rejection, failure, and ultimately self-acceptance. By continuing to write for herself and not allowing others' opinions to dictate her worth, she went on to create one of the most beloved and successful franchises in the world. A close friend of mine, an artist, also struggled with seeking approval from others. She would often feel discouraged when her artwork wasn't praised or recognized by those around her. Her creativity was stifled by the pressure to conform to others' expectations, and she began doubting her abilities. One day, we had a conversation about self-acceptance, where I reminded her of the importance of creating art for herself, not for others. This simple shift in perspective changed everything. She began to paint for her own joy and satisfaction, without worrying about the opinions of others. As a result, her art flourished in ways she never expected, and she regained her passion and confidence. By letting go of the need for approval, she allowed herself to thrive in her own creative process. The lesson here is clear. Your own approval is the most important. Cultivating self-acceptance and practicing self-love is essential for living a fulfilling life. The more you learn to validate yourself, the less dependent you become on others' opinions. The less you seek from others, the more empowered you become. When we stop seeking approval, we stop allowing others to define our worth, and we create the space to live authentically. In doing so, we unlock the potential for true happiness and peace, independent of external influences. So, start today by embracing your own worth and giving yourself the love and approval that you deserve. 4. Don't let rejection define you. Rejection is an inevitable part of life, but it doesn't have to define who we are. In Buddhist wisdom, the Buddha teaches us that in the end, only 3 things matter: how much you loved, how gently you lived, and how gracefully you let go of things not meant for you. This statement serves as a reminder that life is full of transitions, and rejection is often one of them. Rather than seeing rejection as an indication of our failure or lack of worth, we can reframe it as a sign that we are being guided towards something better, something more aligned with our true path. For many of us, rejection can feel deeply personal. Whether it's a failed relationship, a job opportunity that slips away, or an unrequited effort, it's easy to internalize these experiences as reflections of our inadequacy. We might even start to doubt our abilities and question our self-worth. However, the truth is that rejection is not a judgment on who we are. It's merely part of the natural ebb and flow of life. Rejection pushes us to let go of what is no longer serving us, and in doing so, it clears space for something new and better to enter our lives. Reflecting on my own journey, I recall how difficult it was to face rejection in various aspects of my life. Whether it was personal or professional, I found myself questioning my decisions and second-guessing my abilities. But over time, I came to realize that rejection was not something to fear or avoid. Instead, it became an opportunity for growth. I began to embrace the idea that rejection was life's way of redirecting me, guiding me toward a more fulfilling path. Once I let go of the attachment to the outcome, I found that new and even better opportunities presented themselves. A powerful example of someone who embodied this mindset is Oprah Winfrey. Early in her career, she faced rejection after rejection, with many people telling her that she didn't have the right look or voice for television. One famous instance was when she was fired from her first job as a news anchor. Had Oprah allowed that rejection to define her, she may never have gone on to become one of the most influential media personalities in the world. Instead, she used rejection as fuel to keep pushing forward, ultimately creating a groundbreaking career that has inspired millions. Oprah's ability to embrace rejection and continue on her path exemplifies how rejection can be a powerful tool for redirection when approached with resilience and openness. I also think of a close friend who experienced a major professional setback when he was passed over for a promotion at work. He was devastated at first, feeling as though he had failed, but over time, he came to see this rejection as a blessing in disguise. He took some time to reflect and ultimately realized that the rejection led him to explore new opportunities that were far more fulfilling and in line with his true interests. By letting go of his attachment to that one outcome, he was able to embrace a new direction in his career and find success in a way he hadn't expected. His story is a testament to the power of letting go gracefully, trusting that life has a better plan for us, and not allowing rejection to diminish our sense of self-worth. The lesson here is clear. Rejection is not a reflection of your value, but rather an opportunity for redirection. Life has a way of guiding us toward the right path, even if it means facing temporary setbacks. By letting go of what no longer serves us and accepting the detours along the way, we make room for growth and new possibilities. When you encounter rejection, remember that it is simply a stepping stone towards something greater. Trust that life has a plan for you, and don't let rejection diminish your belief in your own worth. Embrace the wisdom of letting go and open yourself to the new opportunities waiting just beyond the horizon. 5. Stop fearing what others think. Worrying about what others think can consume us in ways we often don't realize, leading us to make decisions based not on our own desires or values, but on external pressures. In Buddhist wisdom, the Buddha teaches, "Let none find fault with others. Let none see the missings and commissions of others, but let one see one's own acts done and undone." This teaching emphasizes the importance of self-awareness and introspection over being preoccupied with others' opinions. When we spend our time scrutinizing the judgments of others, we lose sight of our own inner peace and become trapped in a cycle of external validation. The truth is, the opinions of others are reflections of their own perspectives, shaped by their experiences, insecurities, and biases. They are not an accurate reflection of who we are or our worth. When we focus too much on what others think, we give them control over our happiness and decisions. This shift in focus takes us away from our true selves and instead places our value in the hands of others. But when we embrace the Buddhist principle of self-awareness, we realize that our energy is better spent in observing our own actions and behaviors, rather than living in constant fear of judgment. This was something I came to understand deeply through a personal experience with a colleague of mine. I remember working alongside a man who was constantly worried about how others perceived him. Every decision he made, whether it was about a presentation, an email, or even a simple comment in a meeting, was influenced by his fear of judgment. He was always second-guessing himself, striving to meet others' expectations, and in the process, he lost touch with his own voice. Over time, his anxiety grew, and it affected both his work and his personal life. But one day, he decided to shift his focus. He started practicing mindfulness, embracing self-reflection, and committing to integrity. He stopped trying to please everyone and focused instead on doing things that aligned with his own values. Gradually, this shift in mindset allowed him to gain confidence, and he became more authentic in both his work and interactions with others. His work began to truly reflect his capabilities and passions, and the approval he once sought from others no longer dictated his happiness. A well-known example of someone who has embodied this lesson is Elon Musk. Musk, the founder of Tesla and SpaceX, is known for his unconventional thinking and willingness to defy the expectations of others. From the early days of Tesla, Musk faced immense skepticism and criticism. People doubted his vision of electric cars and space travel, but he didn't let their judgments stop him. Instead, he focused on his own goals and remained steadfast in his pursuit of innovation, regardless of what others thought. His willingness to follow his own path, regardless of the external noise, is a testament to the power of not fearing judgment and living authentically. Today, his companies are at the forefront of technological advancements, and he has become one of the most influential entrepreneurs in the world. The lesson here is clear. When we stop fearing the judgment of others and instead focus on living authentically, we free ourselves from the constraints of external expectations. The opinions of others are often projections of their own insecurities, and their criticisms are not necessarily an accurate reflection of our worth. By focusing on our own actions, being true to ourselves, and not chasing approval, we gain a sense of peace and confidence that cannot be shaken by external opinions. When we stop trying to meet everyone's expectations, we find true freedom and begin to live a life that is a true reflection of who we are. This is not just the path to personal growth. It's the key to finding lasting fulfillment and happiness. 6. Don't sacrifice your peace to please others. In our daily lives, many of us have been taught to prioritize the needs and happiness of others. Whether it's at work, in relationships, or in social circles, the desire to be liked and to please others often outweighs our own well-being. However, this Buddhist wisdom, better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace, serves as a powerful reminder that our inner peace should never be compromised to meet others' expectations. The Buddhist teaching urges us to reflect on the value of silence and peace over constant action and noise, especially when it comes at the expense of our own tranquility. In the pursuit of pleasing others, we often end up sacrificing our peace, convincing ourselves that by doing so, we will gain acceptance, approval, or love. However, the reality is that no matter how hard we try, it is impossible to satisfy everyone. People's desires and expectations are ever-changing, and trying to meet all of them will only lead to stress, burnout, and a gradual erosion of our self-worth. In my personal experience, there was a time when I went out of my way to please others, bending over backward to meet their expectations. I felt drained, disconnected, and unfulfilled, constantly giving of myself without receiving anything in return. Over time, this approach led to resentment, not just towards others, but also towards myself for neglecting my own needs. It was only when I began to prioritize my peace that I realized the importance of setting boundaries and focusing on what truly mattered. A perfect example of this can be seen in the story of a colleague of mine. He was a highly dedicated employee who always went the extra mile to meet his boss's expectations. However, there was a particular project that didn't align with his values or professional goals, yet he took it on because he feared disappointing his superior. The stress from working on a project that didn't resonate with him began to take a toll on his health. He felt overwhelmed and physically drained, yet continued to push himself, believing that he had to please everyone around him. It wasn't until he finally decided to set boundaries and speak up that he was able to regain control over his life. By prioritizing his peace and aligning his actions with his values, he found balance again, and his stress levels decreased significantly. This experience taught him that his well-being should always come first, and pleasing others was never worth sacrificing his peace. In the modern world, many of us find ourselves in similar situations. We might take on extra responsibilities or obligations to please our family, friends, or colleagues, only to find ourselves exhausted and resentful. This is especially true in work environments, where the pressure to perform and meet others' expectations can feel overwhelming. A high-profile example of someone who understands the importance of preserving peace and setting boundaries is Oprah Winfrey. As one of the most influential media moguls in the world, Oprah has always emphasized the importance of self-care and balance. In her journey, she faced constant demands from others, but she learned that her peace and mental health were non-negotiable. Oprah often speaks about the importance of listening to her intuition and saying no to things that don't align with her values or bring her peace. By prioritizing her inner harmony, Oprah has not only been able to achieve incredible success, but also maintain a sense of fulfillment and joy. The lesson here is clear. We must prioritize our inner peace above all else. This doesn't mean we should stop helping others, but we must recognize that we cannot give from an empty cup. We cannot continue to pour ourselves into other people's needs without depleting our own energy and well-being. Setting boundaries is essential in ensuring that we don't overextend ourselves and lose sight of our values. When we learn to say no and take care of ourselves, we are better equipped to show up for others in a meaningful and authentic way. Ultimately, our peace is more important than constantly trying to meet others' expectations. And by embracing this truth, we free ourselves from the pressure to please and begin living a life that is truly aligned with who we are. 7. Let go of attachment to outcomes. Attachment to outcomes is a common source of suffering, and Buddhism teaches us that this attachment is one of the root causes of our discontent. The Buddha's wisdom reminds us, holding on to things is the cause of all suffering. This extends beyond material possessions to include our attachment to specific outcomes, expectations, and even relationships. When we attach ourselves too strongly to an envisioned result, we often block ourselves from experiencing life in its fullest form, leading to disappointment and frustration. In my personal journey, I've noticed that when I clung too tightly to specific outcomes, it became more difficult to be present in the moment. Whether I was hoping for success in my career, anticipating a particular response from others, or striving for a relationship to go a certain way, my expectations often clouded my perception. The constant pressure to make things fit into a rigid plan left me feeling drained and out of alignment with my true self. Over time, however, I've learned that letting go of attachment to outcomes is one of the most liberating practices I can engage in. When I shift my focus from worrying about the end goal to embracing the journey and the lessons I'm learning along the way, I am able to find peace in the present. A powerful example of this principle can be seen in the life of Steve Jobs, one of the most iconic figures in the tech world. Jobs' journey was marked by significant setbacks and failures, including being ousted from Apple, the company he founded. It would have been easy for him to become consumed with frustration and anger, unable to let go of his attachment to the idea of leading Apple to success. Instead, Jobs took this rejection as an opportunity for personal reinvention. He founded Next, which eventually became a cornerstone of the tech industry and helped Pixar revolutionize the animation world. His decision to detach himself from a singular outcome allowed him to reinvent his career and later return to Apple with a fresh perspective that changed the tech world forever. The lesson here is clear. Attachment to specific outcomes can limit our potential and cloud our ability to experience the full richness of life. By practicing non-attachment, we open ourselves up to new possibilities and embrace the unpredictable nature of the journey. In doing so, we reduce the pressure of perfection and learn to appreciate the process itself. Whether we're pursuing career goals, personal relationships, or creative projects, letting go of attachment to the outcome allows us to experience more joy, peace, and fulfillment in the process, regardless of where the journey leads. This wisdom is not just about surrendering to uncertainty, but about embracing the freedom that comes with allowing life to unfold as it will, without the weight of rigid expectations. 8. Embrace impermanence. Impermanence is one of the core teachings of Buddhism, and it emphasizes the truth that everything is constantly changing. The Buddha teaches us that everything is in a state of flux, which reminds us that nothing in life remains the same forever. Whether we are experiencing moments of joy or times of hardship, everything is temporary. Recognizing and accepting this truth is essential to finding peace and contentment. The concept of impermanence invites us to flow with life's changes rather than resist them. In my own life, I have encountered many instances where change felt overwhelming. There have been times when I clung to the past, whether to familiar relationships, career paths, or certain circumstances, because I feared losing what I knew and understood. But I eventually realized that resisting change only caused more suffering. The more I resisted, the more I struggled. Embracing impermanence, however, has taught me that change is not something to fear but something to welcome. Life's unpredictability is a gift. It opens the door to growth, new experiences, and fresh opportunities. When we accept change, we become more adaptable and resilient, and we find ourselves better equipped to handle whatever life brings our way. One of the most powerful examples of embracing impermanence comes from the life of Nelson Mandela. Mandela's life is a testament to the transformative power of accepting change. After being imprisoned for 27 years, he could have easily become consumed by bitterness and resentment. The world saw him as a symbol of resistance, yet Mandela recognized that his situation, like everything else in life, was impermanent. Instead of clinging to the pain of his imprisonment, he allowed the passage of time to shift his perspective. When he was finally released, Mandela did not dwell on the past or seek revenge. Instead, he embraced the changes in his life and used his experiences to build a future of equality, reconciliation, and peace for South Africa. His acceptance of impermanence and his ability to adapt to the changes in his life helped him become one of the world's most respected leaders. The lesson here is clear. Life is ever-changing, and by accepting impermanence, we free ourselves from the fear of the unknown. We can't control everything that happens in our lives, but we can control how we respond to the changes that come our way. By embracing change, we not only accept life as it is, but also open ourselves to the many opportunities and lessons it offers. Just as Mandela transformed his life and the lives of others by embracing impermanence, we too can find strength and wisdom in accepting that change is a natural and necessary part of our journey. By letting go of the fear of what might be lost, we can fully embrace what is yet to come. 9. Cultivate compassion toward yourself. Buddhist wisdom teaches us that compassion must begin with ourselves. The Buddha says, "You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." This powerful statement reminds us that self-compassion is not just a nice-to-have quality. It is a vital part of a healthy, balanced life. Too often, we are quick to show kindness, empathy, and understanding to others, yet we fail to extend the same grace to ourselves. We tend to hold ourselves to impossible standards, harshly criticizing our own mistakes, weaknesses, and imperfections. But the reality is, we are deserving of the same compassion we so freely give others. I've had my own struggles with self-compassion, There were times in my life when I was overly critical of myself. I pushed myself to work harder, to achieve more, often to the point of burnout. I would hold myself accountable for every mistake, magnifying my flaws and creating a mental dialogue that was full of self-doubt and frustration. The more I did this, the more I noticed that the peace I sought from external accomplishments remained elusive. But when I began to practice self-compassion, things began to shift. I started forgiving myself for mistakes, treating myself with the same empathy that I would offer a friend, and recognizing that imperfections are part of being human. In doing so, I discovered a deep sense of peace, a sense of acceptance that allowed me to thrive in my own skin. A powerful example of self-compassion can be found in the life of Princess Diana. She was known worldwide for her charity work and kindness toward others. Yet behind the public persona, she struggled with issues of self-esteem and body image. Despite her fame and the admiration of millions, Diana faced intense emotional turmoil, especially as her private life became a subject of constant media scrutiny. However, over time, she began to confront her inner struggles. Rather than continuing to ignore or suppress her emotional pain, Diana showed vulnerability and embraced the process of healing. Through therapy and self-reflection, she learned to nurture herself emotionally. By learning to extend compassion toward herself, she found the strength to continue her humanitarian work, not from a place of perfection, but from a place of understanding and love for herself. This self-compassion enabled her to give more to others because she was, in turn, replenishing herself. The lesson here is clear. Self-compassion is essential for living a fulfilling, balanced life. We are often our own harshest critics, and while striving for improvement is important, we must not forget to treat ourselves with kindness along the way. Just as we would offer compassion to a friend in need, we must offer that same level of understanding to ourselves. Self-compassion allows us to heal, grow, and ultimately show up for others with a full heart. When we practice it, we create the emotional space to pursue our goals without fear of failure or rejection, knowing that we are worthy of love and care no matter where we stand. 10. Live in the present moment. Buddhist wisdom teaches us that the present moment is all we truly have, and this is emphasized by the Buddha's advice. Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. In our fast-paced world, where distractions are abundant and the pressures of the future loom large, it's easy to become consumed by the past or anxious about what lies ahead. We often replay past mistakes or envision future scenarios that may never happen, which only causes unnecessary stress and anxiety. The truth is, the only moment we have control over is now, and focusing on the present allows us to experience life as it unfolds. I've personally struggled with being present, often caught up in worries about the future or regrets about the past. But over time, I've come to realize that when I focus my attention on the current moment, I feel a sense of calm and clarity. Through mindfulness practices and meditation, I've trained my mind to stay in the present, letting go of distractions and the weight of past or future concerns. What I've found is that it's in these moments of mindfulness that I feel most connected to myself and the world around me. It's when I'm fully engaged in what's happening now that I experience true joy and fulfillment. In a world where we're constantly multitasking and looking ahead, being present can be the most grounding practice we can cultivate. One powerful example of living in the present comes from the Dalai Lama. Despite facing immense challenges in his life, including being forced into exile and losing his homeland, he remains a model of peace and mindfulness. The Dalai Lama's ability to focus on the present moment rather than dwelling on past losses or fearing an uncertain future has allowed him to lead a life of service and serenity. Even though he's endured hardships most of us can't imagine, he continues to find joy in the present, focusing on helping others and embracing each day with a sense of gratitude. His life teaches us that no matter the circumstances, living in the present moment is the key to peace. The lesson here is simple yet profound. The present moment is all we truly have. When we let go of the weight of past regrets and stop worrying about the future, we can immerse ourselves in the richness of now. The present is where life happens, and by staying present, we open ourselves to the beauty, joy, and peace that each moment brings. It's easy to become lost in the demands of life or distracted by the constant noise around us. But by practicing mindfulness and concentrating on the present, we can reconnect with ourselves and experience life with greater depth and fulfillment. Living in the present moment is not just about being aware of our surroundings. It's about engaging fully with our thoughts, feelings, and experiences as they arise. This awareness fosters clarity and peace, allowing us to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. By embracing the present, we stop living in a state of constant longing or anxiety, and instead, we cultivate a sense of gratitude and presence in everything we do. As we close this journey through these 10 powerful lessons, we see a clear truth. The path to true freedom starts from within. Buddhism teaches us that by focusing on what we can control, ourselves, we free ourselves from the need for external validation and approval. By embracing solitude, letting go of rejection, and prioritizing inner growth, we discover the strength to live authentically and peacefully. The Buddhist teachings remind us that the most important work we can do is the work within. Through self-awareness, mindfulness, and compassion, we create a life that is entirely our own, one that isn't shaped by the expectations of others, but by our own values and truths. True power comes from within. When we turn inward and nurture our own growth, we not only transform ourselves, but we also inspire those around us to do the same. This ripple effect of inner peace and self-reliance has the potential to change not only our own lives, but the world around us as well. Thank you for joining me on this journey today. If these insights have resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe to Zen Mind Journey for more. May your path be filled with peace, purpose, and clarity as you continue to embrace the wisdom within.